All right. So, if you were watching yesterday, you know that I finished page 6. Completely done. Completely done. And there's even, there's a couple of lines where I was like, do I want to fill in more over here? On this character, I could probably put more with his vest and everything. But I like it kind of open like that. It's the lost line. So I've roughed out page 7. There's nothing here really yet. I mean, I rough it out and I do the dialogue. And this page, to me, is really all about exposition. It's picking up the threads from the 9-Volt Monsters comic where that was the part 1 of the story. So if you didn't get a chance to read it, it kind of explains anything that's missing. You got to constantly make sure your audience is in touch with the finer details of your story. You never want to leave them confused. So, in this case, whoops, there we go. What's happened is they've left, but also, by the way, you don't want it to be too elementary, right? So, in fact, I even saw this great quote on Cartoonist Kayfabe today where they were recalling an interview with Jim Shooter, who famously said, every comic is someone's first comic. And then Jim Shooter himself said, yeah, everyone always brings that back to me, but nobody ever mentions the second part of that statement, which is, it doesn't have to be lousy, that's when he's, it doesn't have to be lousy. That's how you know it was Jim Shooter, because that's exactly how he talks. But he's right. You don't have to make it stupid. In this case, I had to have the explanation of where they are now. We just left the throne room, and here we have them flying through space, and there's these crystals over here. So I had to have some narration boxes. And my narration boxes are saying they're back in the magic realm, the space between worlds. I just say it. And only this time they are no longer bound by Vuko's unbreakable vow. That piece of information, that tidbit, explains what they were doing on the previous page. It constantly, keeps the readers informed. And then we also have dialogue between the characters. This one's going to be Abrax. He's riding aboard the little howdah inside this flying goose, and the goose is the monkey, right? So I have to explain that part too. He says, I thought you knew how to control the dimensional travel spell. It explains why they're together, because he can't control the dimensional travel spell. And he explains, I don't really have it. I've got this artifact called the Lamp of Knowledge, but it's not predictable. And then Abrax says, I have kind of the same problem. I don't actually control spells, I just summon things. And that's really the Chimera, Hondo, which is now a goose. You can say, as you can see, he can transform into a very comfortable mount. My real skill is summoning. So we're explaining the story as we're making the story, right? And we're explaining it in terms of dialogue between characters, what the characters say to each other, what the characters say about themselves. And then, over here, we get into this panel, and he says, hey, the talisman Vuku gave me, which he gave him in the very last panel of page 6, is guiding us towards one of the crystal shards. And now we kind of understand each of these crystals represents a different realm of Figment. Now, that's been true since Rabbit Fighter number 1. It's been part of the baseline of my comic book universe. And then Abrax says, focus on the crystal. It should start pulling us in, and they're being pulled towards one particular crystal, and they'll warp to that world. So Prometheus powers, and indeed Rabbit Fighter and Isolt and much of my other stories, including Unga Bunga and a couple others, Unga Bunga, Corbo, they all based in this same world where it's like an isekai thing where they can travel from world to world. But most of them don't travel from world to world. Only Prometheus powers really does the traveling between, and all of Rabbit Fighter is just about traveling from world to world. They're looking for one world in particular. Prometheus Powers' central story is that he's lost his memories, and so he's also traveling from world to world. Starlock is also kind of a traveler, I guess, but his story is it's more about revenge. And same thing with Stardust. Starlock and Stardust are actually brothers. All right. Well, anyways, layer 1. I think I have my technical pen. I do. So this time, am I on the right? I am not on the right one. What I've done here. Let me just take the pencil layer out for just a moment. I've got to just do the panel borders. Now, what I'm kind of hoping is I'm going to get a chance to learn something cool in this upcoming inking class. You know, I don't feel too bad about my amateurism because I am indeed an amateur. Like that moment, you ever see the movie Hook? When the Robin Williams character, who's supposed to be Peter Pan, admonishes his children and says, "You're acting like a child." And he goes, "I am a child." That's me. All right, here we go. Although I'm not a child. I am an amateur, though. So, all right. Now, at this point, pull the pencils off. We got 3 nice panels, more or less aligned. And the top area is one big open area. So what I need to do... I originally had it as a panel, but I realized I wanted to have the shards, you know. I wanted to show the shards more prevalent and to have them, you know, give the sense of vastness. Now, we already have Stardust is in space. Space is not the space between, right? Space is different from the magic realm. It's a different world. All right. So let's do this. We're gonna do this one, and we're gonna call this one Inky. And we're gonna do another one, and we're gonna call this one Bubbles. Bubbles for speech bubbles. Blah 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 blah. Let's see. Rusty Nib. Oh, I don't want Rusty Nib, actually. For speech bubbles, I would rather have the other one. So let's use Faves. Do I have one called Faves? Or Recent? Should ought to do it. Technical pen. All right. Bubbles. So these are narration boxes, these 2. And in fact, I'm a little unsure about this one. Only this time they are no longer bound by Vuku's Unbreakable Vow. I feel as if I could move this one up a little bit. I need to be very conscientious about avoiding the margins. The closer you get to the margins, the more danger you end up in if, you know, you have a trim situation where it trims off part of things. You definitely don't want your words to get trimmed off. I feel like I have a full inch in there. This is the print size, so it's like probably about half an inch, a little bit more than half an inch. That feels right to me right there. So let's go in and knock this out. And I don't think I did a good overlap here, so we're probably going to be redrawing this narration box as well. So that's too small. I think it's too small. All right. So if this is too small, what then? Well, we can take the whole thing and just make it a little bit bigger. Center it. Okay. The second thing is, let's take only this time. This one right here. Just bump it down just a tiny bit. And I think of narration boxes as pop-outs rather than being dimensionally a part of the panel. So what I'd like to do is overlap them slightly. Just a little bit. And I didn't do it enough. Oh. Maybe I did enough. It feels like a good overlap. So let's go ahead and we're going to flood fill those with white. 1, 2. Well, nope. It's got a hole in it somewhere. That must be the hole right there. We're going to flood fill it. All right, it's flood filled. Now we're going to think about, oh, here's the other problem. Let's get a black right here, and the word is soon. So where is it? Soon. Soon. Okay. It's great when you're starting on something new to do something called, what is this called again? It's like an initial cap. It's like a, all right, where, shoot. It's going to go in the bubbles layer. All right, here's what we're going to do. Now it says un, right? Everybody sees that. I'm going to hand letter that first one. And now just take a look at the effect right here. This looks more like a, and feels more like a cartoon or a comic to me when I do that. And once again, I learned this trick from Evan Hill, and I started noticing other people like who had done it. It's in Wiz Comics #1. It's in the first Shazam story. So it's a great trick. Great special effect. Love it. Looking good. All right, so now that we've got that, let's get into let's get into these speech bubbles. Now I think my speech bubbles are more or less in the right position. There's a speech bubble kit that Itai Monero makes, and I know it would solve a lot of my problems like immediately. Oh, that's actually his speech bubble. We can't see him very well because he's inside this little howdah thing on top of the. And then this is Prometheus Powers, who's flying free. Technically, oh, you know what? I don't like this. Here's what I don't like about it. It didn't stack nice. Here's the stack, and it has the word place all by itself, right? So we've got to restack that. That's a better stack. That's a better stack. That's actually even nicer right there. And I want to avoid getting it too close to the edge, just like we avoided the other one. All right, we're still rolling. We're still rolling. Shout out to Sideburns, who said, I hate when my video glitches. I thought it was just me. The glitch is my own fault, too. The glitch that happens is my screen going to sleep. All right, I think this is too low. I flew through a portal and was trapped. Let's put it right there. I know I probably avoided putting it there to avoid covering up that one shard, but we'll just put another shard out somewhere. The great thing about leaving it in this rough state is you have more flexibility for your speech bubble placement. when you know that you can build the art around it rather than the other way around. Like when they first started doing Marvel Method comics, they had to just reserve the top 25% of the panel. That was going to be for speech bubbles. You know? And then Stan Lee would just write whatever interpretation he had of what was going on in the image. And sometimes he got it wrong. Sometimes he got the characters wrong. So, like, there's a really in-depth analysis of some of those early Fantastic Four ones where Jack Kirby had created the story and the art, and then Stan Lee just interpreted it weird. You know? All right. So that's good. That's a good start. We got all of our speech bubbles worked out on this first panel. We can go ahead and start on ink layer now, although I should probably go ahead and flood fill them. Let's go ahead and do that. It's got a hole in it. Where is the hole? Shout out if you see the hole. I'm just going to tell you that I don't see the hole anywhere. So normally the holes, this is where they pop up. Here. Maybe here. Hey. Oh, that's because I'm so dumb. I figured out why. That one worked. But this one. That one worked too. The reason it didn't work is because I was on the wrong layer. All right. Now let's talk about what's closest thing, how we approach the inking from what I remember from my inking class. This is my previous inking class, not the one I'll be taking in October. Whatever's closest to the camera, and then you work your way backwards. So this is going to be Prometheus powers. Now, unfortunately, I did them in the roughs. Which means I didn't work on his face very good. And I just made his eyes huge. All right, let's try and make them smaller. We're still in the pencil layer, so of course we have plenty of room to play around with it. No, is his head too big? I think it is. Is that better? No, his mouth is a little weird, but I think that is better right there. Okay. Another sort of face landmark that I often want to hit is the brow line. So we don't have a straight up, it's not a straight on face, and it's not a side face, not a profile. It's a 3/4. We got one ear, you know. So you want to make sure that you have enough information here. And one of the things is I know the nose is crooked and out of place, and possibly too big. whatever we do in the pencil layer is not going to be there when we do the ink. So we can kind of move it around a little bit. Let's get the nostril here. There we go. I think it's pretty good. All right, the symbol of the what is the talisman? This talisman that he has. I think the talisman is a crystal globe, and kind of glows. At one point, he looks at it and he goes, "It's guiding us. It's guiding us towards one of those." I've tried to draw this magic realm several times. It's in the very first Prometheus Power. This is the fourth Prometheus Power story. It's in the very first one. It's in Rabbit Fighter. It's in technically it's in one of the Corbeau stories. Um, hmm. It's in the very first Isolde story. And I've drawn a little different each time, but I try to maintain. I mean, it's not quite the full Ditko, interdimensional, you know, environment, which I think they really captured pretty well in the movies. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a shot. We're going to go ahead and grab our ink again. The rusty nib. All right. Now I'm inking at the level that I would ink at, because this is the actual ink layer. But I'm still trying to keep kind of a touch on here because, well, I know that every line I do after this is going to have to be thinner, and if it's too thick, it won't look right. How about that? I just love this under chin shadow. I know it's probably not 100% correct. All right. All right. Okay. Duty now for the future. I'm going to reverse the angle on the. I had it going this way as if he's facing away, but actually, the way his hand is, I think it needs to be curved this direction. All right. Without the pencil layer, we have the beginnings of something. Let me just finish up the outlines, like the perimeter of the figure, and then we'll call it a day for right now. We don't have to go. We're not in a hurry. We don't have to go that far. Also, I noticed his legs are too long. What then, Peter? Okay. This is about right. Because there's some foreshortening going on here, right, with the legs? I think I made his shoulders a bit too broad. All right, we have the beginnings of something. Beginnings of something. And then it's just a matter of we're gonna fill in the rest of this, the background details of this panel. Make sure that the this flying goose thing with the howdah on the back is really legible. And if there's some way that we could tie it back to the monkey creature that we saw earlier, which is Hondo, and then it becomes clear after a while that this goose thing is the same as him. Now we're going to hedge our bets because on the next page I'm going to show this thing transforming back into the monkey. So even if you didn't get it, you didn't like catch the clue, by the next page you'll be informed with no doubts like what this thing is and why it exists. Don't leave any mysteries if you can. I know that might sound counterintuitive. You might think, "Oh, but I'm mysterious. I'm being mysterious." Secretive, in fact. Um, that's not why you want to do. You don't want to do that in comics. I'll just put it that way. Unless you're deliberately writing a mystery story, which we're not. Okay. We are right at 29 minutes. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and there will be more. Prometheus Powers, more comics in general. Every single day. If there's a government shutdown, I might be on here every day. All right. I've still got to do the background, but we have a good start. This is what the layer looks like so far. All right. Talk to you later.